The airport loudspeaker blared across the crowded terminal. Final boarding call for Flight 287 to Seattle. The announcement struck like a bell, one that could change the course of a life. Emma Brooks ran, her footsteps echoing sharply against the polished floor, her thin coat fluttering behind her like a desperate flag. Every stride was a heartbeat, every gate she passed a reminder. She was standing on the thin line between opportunity and failure. Seattle, the city of unfinished dreams. There tomorrow morning, a life-changing interview awaited her. The job she had been fighting for, saving every penny from long shifts at a diner and caring for the elderly. All for this one ticket, this one chance to start over and break free from the endless cycle of struggle. The boarding gate was right ahead. Just a few more steps and she would reach her goal. But then, a faint sound reached her ears, soft, fragile, and filled with pain. Emma froze. Not far away, an old man had collapsed beside the waiting area. His worn gray coat was wrinkled and frayed. His wooden cane rolled across the tiles. One trembling hand clutched his chest, his wide, panicked eyes searching the crowd. Pleading, desperate. Emma stood rooted to the ground. The gate in front of her meant everything. Her dream, her future. But behind her, a life was slipping away. In that suspended second, her heart spoke louder than reason. She turned around and ran back, not toward her future, but toward compassion. And that single choice would change her life forever. Emma dropped to her knees beside the old man, her trembling hands checking for a pulse, eyes locked on every shallow breath. Everything she'd learned from years of caring for the elderly flooded back. Check the airway, keep him from falling again, calm the panic. "Sir, can you hear me? Breathe slowly, in and out," she whispered, her voice shaking but steady enough to comfort. A nearby airport staffer sprinted over, radioing for medical help. The scene was a blur of motion, voices, and footsteps. And then came that voice again over the loudspeaker, slicing through the chaos like a blade. "Final boarding call for passenger Emma Brooks, Flight 287 to Seattle." Her lips tightened. Her eyes darted toward the gate. It was closing. Her ticket was still in her pocket. Her dream, her escape, her everything was right there, slipping away. Part of her wanted to run, to get up and sprint toward the life she'd fought so hard for. But then the old man's frail hand clutched her wrist, holding on as if his life depended on it. He whimpered, terrified, and Emma's chest tightened. Her mother's words echoed in her head. "Kindness isn't about what you have. It's about what you give." And just like that, she knew. Emma didn't move. She stayed, her hand wrapped firmly around his, until the paramedics arrived, their gurney wheels squealing across the floor. The old man was lifted away amid a flurry of white coats and urgent commands. Moments later, the loudspeaker's final announcement filled the terminal. "Gate closed. Flight 287 to Seattle has departed." Emma's shoulders slumped. She sank into the nearest chair, her hands still trembling. The ticket in her pocket, her ticket to a new life, was now just a piece of paper. Tears slipped down her cheeks, not from regret, but from exhaustion. She had made her choice. She had saved a life and lost her own chance at one. When the stretcher disappeared behind the temporary airport infirmary doors, Emma finally felt her whole body trembling. Announcements for other flights echoed through the terminal, blending with the noise of restless passengers. But to her, the world had gone silent. All she could hear was the pounding of her own heart, hollow, uncertain. On the glowing screen above, the words, "Flight 287, Seattle departed," flashed in cold finality, like a sentence passed down by fate. Emma sat motionless at gate 16, the crumpled ticket in her hand. The harsh, fluorescent lights washed over her tired face. Her eyes, red and swollen, stared blankly into the void. For 12 long months, she had saved, waiting tables by day, caring for the elderly by night, just to afford this single ticket. The interview in Seattle was her one shot, her only chance to leave behind a life of struggle. And now it was gone, evaporated in the span of a few minutes, traded away for an act of compassion. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a message from the airline. "We're sorry, your flight has departed. Please get in touch with customer service. A faint, bitter laugh escaped her lips as tears began to fall freely. No one on the other side of that message would ever understand the price she had just paid. After a long pause, she opened her messaging app and typed a note to the Seattle recruiter. I'm so sorry. I won't make it to the interview tomorrow. There was an emergency at the airport. I know how important this opportunity is, but I couldn't leave someone who needed help. She hit send, then powered off her phone. Outside, the night had settled in. The runway lights stretched endlessly into the distance. That same glowing path she had spent her whole life chasing, now just a glimmer out of reach. A janitor passed by, pausing when he noticed her sitting there. Miss, you okay? He asked softly. Emma pressed her lips together and nodded, her voice barely a whisper. Yeah, I just missed my flight. The man gave a quiet nod and moved on, leaving her alone in the cavernous, fluorescent silence. Time dragged. Eventually, Emma stood, slinging her backpack over her shoulder, her footsteps echoing down the long corridor. Each step felt heavier, as if she were dragging a dying dream behind her. She stopped at a small cafe still open at the far end of the terminal. The steam from her coffee fogged the glass, blurring the reflection of a young woman staring back. Eyes empty, yet somehow still unbroken. She had lost everything, yet she felt no regret, because deep down, Emma knew. If time rewound, she would still run to help that old man. What she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that this choice, the one that cost her her future, would become the very moment that changed her destiny forever. The night had fully settled over the airport. Only a few weary travelers remained, their silhouettes bathed in the sterile white glow of all-night coffee stands. Emma sat motionless on a hard plastic chair, absently turning her half-empty cup of cold coffee in her hands. Everything was over, or so she thought. Then, just as she was about to leave, a voice called out from the nearby bar. Excuse me, Miss Emma Brooks? She looked up, startled. A flight attendant in the Sky Legend uniform was smiling politely as she approached. You're Emma Brooks, correct? Someone's waiting for you at Gate 4. Waiting for me? Emma frowned in confusion. Who could possibly be waiting for her at this hour? The attendant only gave a mysterious smile. They said they owe you a thank you. Clutching the strap of her backpack, Emma followed the direction the woman pointed. The echoes of loudspeaker announcements faded behind her, replaced by a hush that seemed to thicken around the VIP wing. Quiet, elegant, and strangely intimidating. She stopped before Gate 4. Two men in black suits stood waiting. One of them stepped forward, his tone calm and formal. Miss Brooks, Mr. Harrington would like to see you. Harrington? She repeated, puzzled. Then the door slid open. What lay beyond took her breath away. A private lounge bathed in golden light, walnut wood tables, leather armchairs, the faint aroma of tea and sandalwood drifting through the air. And in the center of it all sat the man she thought she'd never see again, the frail old stranger she had saved only hours earlier. Except now, he was anything but frail. He wore a tailored navy suit, his posture straight, his hands steady as he lifted a porcelain teacup. His eyes were clear and commanding, his smile serene. Emma froze in the doorway, her mouth dry. You're all right? He set the cup down, his voice warm but carrying quiet authority. Thanks to you, yes. Please, have a seat, Emma. She hesitated, her pulse quickening as she sat opposite him. I missed my flight. I was supposed to be in Seattle by now. The man smiled faintly, a glint of meaning flickering in his eyes. I know, and I'm sorry for that. But you haven't really lost anything, Emma frowned. What do you mean? Who are you? He extended a steady hand and spoke with calm finality. Arthur Harrington, founder and honorary chairman of Sky Legend Airlines. The words struck her like lightning. She looked around, the logo on the walls, the golden wings embroidered on the staff uniforms, and realization hit. The man she'd thought was just an old, forgotten traveler was the creator of the very airline whose plane she had missed. You founded Sky Legend? Harrington nodded, taking another sip of tea. His tone softened. I often visit airports alone, unannounced. You see, this is where you glimpse who people truly are, impatient, selfish, or kind. And today you reminded me why I ever built this company. Not for profit. For people, Emma said nothing. Under the amber light, tears welled and fell silently. Not from pity, but from something deeper. Harrington picked up his phone and spoke a few quiet words. Reschedule the interview for Miss Emma Brooks. Inform the Seattle board to expect her. Then he turned back to her with a gentle smile. Your interview isn't over, Emma. It's only just beginning. This time, with someone who truly wants to know who you are. Emma stared at him, stunned. The moment felt unreal, dreamlike. But in that surreal calm, for the first time in years, she felt something she hadn't known in a long time. She felt seen. The next morning, soft sunlight filtered through the curtains of the hotel room where Emma had been placed for the night. She stirred awake, still unsure if everything that had happened yesterday had been real. On the desk lay a first-class plane ticket and a folded note written in elegant, deliberate handwriting. Gate 1A, 9 a.m., Seattle. Don't be late. A.H., Emma smiled faintly. Those two letters, A.H., Arthur Harrington, were enough to remind her that something in her life had truly shifted. That morning's flight was unlike any other she had ever taken. No longer was she the exhausted woman clutching a frayed backpack, worrying about lost luggage and missed chances. This time she sat by the window, watching the clouds drift past, her heart a swirl of gratitude, fear, and anticipation. Do I really deserve this? She whispered to herself, fingers tightening nervously. At the Sky Legend Airlines headquarters in Seattle, a tower of glass and steel slicing through the gray skyline, Emma walked into the boardroom. A long table stretched before her, lined with executives in tailored suits. At its center sat Arthur Harrington, serene yet sharp, his eyes carrying both warmth and authority. Welcome to Seattle, Miss Brooks, and he began. We heard you missed your flight yesterday. To save a stranger. Emma blushed, lowering her gaze. I just did what anyone should do. One of the younger directors frowned, his tone clipped. You realize, of course, that in business, professionalism and punctuality are paramount. Sometimes emotions can cost you an opportunity. The air tightened. Emma hesitated, then straightened her back and met his gaze. I understand. But if one day it were your loved one lying on the floor of that airport, gasping for air, would you walk away just to make a meeting? The room fell silent. Every pair of eyes turned toward her. Arthur's expression softened, pride flickering behind the calm facade, while the young director looked down, speechless. Emma continued, voice trembling but firm. I didn't help him because I thought he was rich or powerful. I didn't even know who he was. I helped because when you can do something good and choose not to, every success afterward feels meaningless. A slow smile spread across Arthur Harrington's face. He nodded once. That, he said quietly, is the best answer I've heard in 30 years. He turned to the board. Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't an interview. It's a lesson. Then he rose, walked over to Emma, and extended his hand. Emma Brooks, welcome to Sky Legend. Emma froze, tears brimming. I actually got the job? Arthur chuckled softly. Not just the job. You'll lead our new initiative, the Sky Heart program. It's a humanitarian project I've dreamed of for years. And I finally found the right person to run it. He paused, his voice warm but resolute. The right person is the one who understands that a small act of kindness can change the world. 2 weeks later, the Seattle Morning Tribune ran a front-page story. Sky Legend launches Sky Heart Foundation, a program supporting elderly and vulnerable travelers. Beneath the headline was a photograph. Emma Brooks is standing beside Arthur Harrington, both smiling beneath the morning light. And the caption read, Sometimes missing a flight means you're exactly where you're meant to be. 2 weeks after the fateful interview, Seattle seemed to carry a new kind of warmth. Lighter, softer, filled with something almost hopeful. On the 40th floor of Sky Legend headquarters, the morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Cameras flashed, microphones crowded the podium, and reporters lined every corner of the gleaming conference hall. Today, the largest airline in America is about to announce a humanitarian initiative that could change the face of the industry. The Sky Heart Foundation. At the center of it all stood Emma Brooks, beside Arthur Harrington. She wore a simple light blue suit. Nothing glamorous, nothing showy. Her smile trembled slightly, but it was genuine. She wasn't a woman of the spotlight. She didn't know how to pose for cameras or charm a crowd. And yet, this light belonged to her, truly rightfully. Arthur stepped forward, his deep voice carrying across the room with quiet authority. For over 40 years, I've led Sky Legend through millions of flights and millions of passengers, each one carrying their own story. But there's one truth I've learned. The world keeps turning because of the people who stop to help someone else. He paused, his gaze softening as he turned toward Emma, the pride of a father flickering behind his tired eyes. 2 weeks ago, I wasn't the chairman of Sky Legend. I was just an old man, exhausted, collapsed in an airport, and in that moment, while dozens walked past, only one girl stopped. The room fell utterly silent. Every camera lens turned toward Emma. Arthur's voice trembled slightly as he continued, "Without her, I might not be standing here today. And without that moment, Sky Legend might never have been reborn." A faint smile tugged at the corners of his lips. "I built an empire with technology, with finance, with numbers. But this young woman reminded me that the true worth of a company isn't measured in profit. It's measured in compassion." When the press conference ended, journalists rushed to Emma, shoving microphones forward. "Miss Brooks, how do you feel knowing you saved the founder of Sky Legend?" Emma smiled humbly, bowing her head slightly. "I didn't save Mr. Harrington, the chairman. I helped a person, someone who needed help." Another young reporter leaned in. "Do you think that one small act changed your life?" Emma paused, then turned toward Arthur, who was chatting softly with a young employee, still wearing that gentle smile. "No," she said quietly. "It didn't change my life. It just brought me to where I was always meant to be. Maybe, sometimes a missed flight is just another kind of takeoff." That night, long after the cameras were gone and the lights dimmed, Arthur and Emma sat together in his quiet office. He poured 2 cups of tea, the scent of jasmine filling the air. "Emma," he began, his voice gravelly but warm, "all my life I've tried to teach my children how to make money. But perhaps the greater lesson is how to do what's right." Emma looked up at him, her eyes glistening. "You've already taught them, Arthur. Not just your family." "The whole world," Arthur chuckled softly, shaking his head. "No, my dear. You taught me. You showed me that kindness never misses the flight of destiny." 2 months later, Forbes published a special cover story, "The Woman Who Missed Her Flight and Changed the Skies Forever." On the cover, Emma Brooks standing proudly beside a Skyheart aircraft, the Foundation's logo gleaming behind her. Beside her, Arthur Harrington smiled, not as a titan of industry, but as a man forever changed by compassion. A year later, Seattle International Airport was as crowded as ever. Rolling suitcases rattled against the polished floor, announcements echoed through the halls, and travelers hurried past in waves of motion. Amid all that chaos stood Emma Brooks, right at Gate 16, the very place where she once missed the flight that changed her life. She wore a navy blue coat, a badge gleaming on her chest. Skyheart Foundation, Director. Her hair was neatly tied back, her expression calm but radiant. She was no longer the anxious, exhausted girl racing against time. She had found something far greater than success. She had found purpose. Nearby, a little girl, no older than 10, sat on a bench, eyes red and teary. Beside her, a worried mother knelt, whispering softly, "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I couldn't get an earlier ticket. You'll have to fly alone," Emma overheard. She walked over, crouching to meet the girl's gaze. "Hey there! What's your name?" "Lily," the girl mumbled. "Lily," Emma smiled gently. "Do you know something? The sky is safest when someone believes they're brave enough to fly." Lily blinked, confused but curious. Emma took out a small silver pin, the Skyheart logo, a pair of wings shaped into a heart, and handed it to her. "Keep this, okay? It's a lucky charm for the brave. You're not flying alone. The Skyheart team will be right there with you." The mother's eyes welled up with tears as she whispered a trembling thank you. As they walked away, Emma stood still, watching them disappear through security. The afternoon sunlight fell across her face, peaceful, serene, the same quiet grace she once had when she stopped to help Arthur Harrington. She returned to her small airport office, a cozy space marked by a brass sign, Gate of Kindness. On the wall hung a framed photograph, Arthur Harrington and Emma, smiling together at the inauguration of the Skyheart Foundation. Below it, the quote Arthur once said during that unforgettable press conference was engraved in silver. Kindness is the only flight that never gets delayed. Arthur had passed away 6 months earlier, peacefully surrounded by his family. He left behind a humanitarian fund worth hundreds of millions of dollars. In his final handwritten letter to Emma, he wrote, "The day I saw you at Gate 16, I knew I had found my true successor, not to run an airline, but to remind the world that kindness still exists." Emma folded the letter carefully and smiled faintly. Outside, the airport announcement echoed through the terminal. Final boarding call for Flight 287 to Seattle. That familiar phrase made her pause. 1 year ago, those same words had forced her to choose between her dream and her compassion. Now they sounded different. Not as a warning, but as a reminder. Sometimes the flight you miss is the beginning of the journey you were meant to take. On the massive electronic display above the main concourse, a new promotional video for Skyheart began to play. Inspired by true events, the Skyheart Project. The screen filled with moving images. Emma kneeling to lift an old man off the airport floor. Arthur smiling faintly in the background, all set to the tagline. One act of kindness can change the sky forever. The final shot lingered on Emma, gazing out a large airport window as planes took off one after another. The wind gently lifted a few strands of her hair as she whispered, to herself, or perhaps to the world, "Sometimes destiny isn't in the flight you catch, but in life you stop to save." The screen faded to black, but not before one final sound broke the silence. A child's laughter, soft and bright. The sound of a new beginning, of kindness taking flight, across skies, across hearts, across time. Final message, the journey of kindness. Emma Brooks didn't just save one man. She saved the very essence of humanity that the modern world often forgets. From a woman who missed her flight, she became a guiding light for journeys of compassion, proving that kindness never truly disappears. It only needs someone brave enough to begin.